We're here with America's Governor, Ron DeSantis. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mark. How's it going?
It is a pleasure. Are you still in San Francisco?
No. Gosh, no. I only lasted there about 20 minutes. And just in the 20 minutes, I saw defecation on the street, heroin use, people smoking crack cocaine. I mean, right in the open. It was almost like a post-apocalyptic civilization. It was sad.
Used to be one of the prettiest cities on the face of the earth, right?
Yeah, and I mean, wealth, and there was vibrant and all this, and this is a result of leftist ideology being imposed on the government and on society, and it's caused the entire society to basically collapse. I mean, when you don't enforce criminal laws against people, they've had prosecutors do that, people flee. The number of businesses that were boarded up was unbelievable, and of course, San Francisco had one of the most draconian COVID lockdowns of any place in the world, and that took a huge toll. So this is a government-induced dystopia that they've created. This is leftism put in practice in raw form, and those are the results that you get.
And isn't this really illustrative of what the Democrats on the left are capable of doing to the entire country? I mean, destroying what's so strong. Isn't it kind of what Joe Biden is doing?
Yeah, I think, look, Biden is clearly, not with it, but the people that are moving policy that are surrounding him in the White House, these are leftist ideologues, and they're pushing in this direction. Absolutely. Biden doesn't have any substantive criticism of anything they've done in places like Chicago or San Francisco. In fact, he was there when I was there. He was there doing fundraisers and stuff like that. So this is their vision. And, you know what I tell people, because, Mark, a lot of people have moved to Florida, and they tell the tales about, oh, I came from Chicago, or I came from Washington State, all these places. And I cannot identify a single jurisdiction that has been governed by leftist politicians, city or state, that would be considered a success story, even taking me out of my conservative frame of mind and say, okay, where is there a vibrant place that's left? Maybe they have higher taxes, things we don't like, but is there any place? And the reality is these problems are in all of these places because it stems from the ideology when it's made into policy. And so I don't think we've ever had an example of more starker differences between a Florida model, what we've done, and the model of the Illinois and the New Yorks or the California. And it's sad because, it used to be in this country, maybe Democrats a little more liberal than we like, but it shouldn't lead to a city just collapsing. Mm-hmm. And yet that's what we're seeing all across this country.
100% right. Now, let me ask you this. You got this guy, Gavin Newsom. He's got something for you. No offense, Governor. He's obsessed with you. And he used to be the mayor of San Francisco. Now he's the governor of the state, obviously. Obviously, he thinks he's presidential timber. I look at L.A., you look at San Francisco, you look at the border on the southern border, California. You look at their tax rates. You have no state income tax. I think their highest rate is over 13%. It is a state in hugely deep debt. Why does he think he's presidential material? I mean, he's pretending he's not, but obviously he's trying to take you on in order to try and lift his own appeal, I guess.
Well, I think part of his obsession with Florida stems from the fact that his in-laws actually moved from California to Florida during our administration, and they left during his administration.
Wait a minute, hold on now. That's breaking story. Just promise me one thing. They didn't move to near where my house is.
No. So they moved. They moved to. I won't say where, but they moved, and I was campaigning for re-election last year, so it was sometime probably in this 2020, and I'm doing like an event. It was actually a fundraiser. They're going around the table, and his father-in-law introduced himself, and he said, my son-in-law is his California governor. So his in-laws moved to Florida. They are proud Florida residents, and they were supporters of mine for a re-election campaign. So I think that may have a little bit to do with it as well. But I think that this is a state If you go to California, I mean, I know a lot of your listeners are there. A lot of people visited. Topography, amazing. They have so many like natural advantages, and it's the state for decades people would try to get to. And really, I would say after World War II was kind of like the height of what it meant to be a successful middle-class American dream type thing, and you had all the innovation, all kind of stuff. And they never lost population for their entire history as a state until he became governor. And now they've hemorrhaged wealth, they've hemorrhaged population, and this is just something that's never happened. And you're right about their debt. The state of Florida, our state-level debt is like $17 billion. California's state-level debt is hundreds of billions of dollars. And they're bigger than us by 40%, but they shouldn't have that much more debt. We run... Our surplus is $15 to $20 billion, depending on the revenue forecast. They're running a $30 billion deficit in California. Our unemployment rate's 2.6%. Theirs is 4.1%. And so, you look at this, and I think what they'll cite are some of the historical advantages California has. No question. They've had a lot of stuff. But what's happened in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's been a downward spiral for the state.
Let me ask you this: on the Republican side, you're running for the nomination. Are you finding, and you're going to an awful lot of places, are you finding people are incredibly concerned about the country, and more of them are interested in your campaign?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think people know, look, obviously we would be running, all of us would be opposing, a Democrat. We're Republicans. But I think right now people have a sense that something's just off kilter with the country. When you have things like men competing in women's sports, when you have woke ideology and things like the military, things just need a restoration of sanity and normalcy. And I think they've seen what we've done in Florida as being one of the few who's been willing to push back successfully against the insanity and actually say, no, in Florida, we are going to be a refuge of freedom, and we are not going to indulge in the nonsense. And that's one of the main reasons people have been attracted to Florida, because we're standing up for common sense.
It's funny with the size of this audience. I get people who say, after an interview with you, Governor, they'll say, wait a minute. You like Governor DeSantis? No, I don't like Governor DeSantis. I like him a lot. He's a good friend of mine. My wife and his wife are good friends. Our families are good friends. And he's terrific. You look at him in the field, and what do you say? You see this guy, Chris Christie. You see, what else do you see? I don't know, but I don't like it. So, yes, he's my friend, and I like him a lot. Governor, you sued the Department of Education. It's funny. I call these departments in Washington, D.C., they're really the opposite of what they say they are, aren't they? Like, what kind of education do you get out of the Department of Education? It should be the Department of Anti-Energy, the Department of No Agriculture. But they give themselves these names. You have sued the Department of Education. Tell us what's going on there.
So people, I think, and I've learned a lot as governor, we talk about universities and how they're run and their orientation. A lot of the reason for that is because they have to get accredited by these regional accreditation bodies. And the Department of Education effectively controls who can be an accreditor. So in Florida, we've done a lot of higher education reforms. We now have all tenured professors have to undergo review every 5 years and can be let go. We eliminated DEI and CRT from all of our public universities. And we've made a lot of very positive changes to take the universities from being more ideological and indoctrination centers to traditional universities. And these are all very common sense things. Most people would agree with them, but even if you don't, clearly these are legitimate policies to do. However, these accreditors will not accredit us because we're not doing it their way. And the question is, who the hell appointed these people to anything? They've never been elected to anything. These are just bureaucrats somewhere, and they're private entities, and they're exercising a massive amount of public power. So we sued the DOE and said, you've unconstitutionally delegated government power to private bodies. We also have things on the appointments clause and everything, and I know, Mark, you know, and probably a lot of your audience understands those issues. But at the end of the day, do we as states have the ability to run our own university system the way we want to, or do we have to genuflect to some accrediting body who gets the bestow by the Biden administration? So I think we're going to win this case, and I think it'll open up the door for a lot of reforms of universities throughout this country, which you all know we desperately need.
Why do you think you come under criticism from some of the more liberal Republicans? Because you take on these cultural battles and so forth and so on. I mean, isn't it crucial that we control what goes on in our classrooms and our schools? I mean, aren't we paying for all this stuff?
Exactly. I mean, the school system exists to serve the community. It doesn't supersede the rights of parents. Universities exist to support whatever the mission the voters of the state want it to. They don't have a right to just do whatever the hell they want to. And so these are publicly funded institutions. Not only do we have the right to direct them in a good way, we have the duty to do it because your tax dollars are at stake. And I think sometimes when you take on these fights, Mark, what I've noticed over the years, you know, a lot of Republican elected officials, some of them will just let the left have their way on all this stuff. Others will maybe try to slow it down a little bit. I think what we've done in Florida, we've reversed it. We've actually recaptured ground. We've recaptured institutions for a much better path, and I think that's really where the left gets upset. And so some of the kind of these Republicans, when they virtue signal to corporate media and to the left on those issues, you know, they know that they will get a megaphone to be able to do it because the left is very upset about all the success we've had in Florida. And the fact is, I think you find a jurisdiction in this country that has defeated the left on more critical issues than we have in the state of Florida over the last 4.5 years.
You know, Governor, you step back and you look at what's going on in this country. When did surgical mutilation of children by the government, in some cases without even parental knowledge, when did that become a civil right? Where was I? How did that happen?
This is how the left operates. Any elite kind of new trend immediately gets smuggled into the federal judiciary with leftist judges. And so if it's a cause celeb of the left, a leftist federal judge is going to find a right to do that in the Constitution. And it's pure activism. But we're in a situation now. We did the ban. We said in Florida, no mutilation, puberty blockers for minors. I mean, think about it, Mark. We were here 5 years ago. You have laws saying like a 14-year-old can't get a tattoo. No one ever sued and successfully and said that was unconstitutional. Now, all of a sudden, there's some type of constitutional right to take away somebody's private parts who's 14 or 15 years old. It's insane. I do think the U.S. Supreme Court will get this right, and I think the things that Florida and other states have done will ultimately be upheld. But it is a problem that we have to understand with how these courts operate. These liberal judges are very, very cognizant of whatever the latest trend in elite left society is. And they can just bring cases, and if it's hitting those hot buttons, they are going to contort themselves to try to come up with a decision that is going to satisfy the left. And I don't know that we have anything on our side on the right that would be the same. It's a direct pipeline from elite academia, elite media, elite Democrats right into the federal judiciary, and that's why we get these crazy rulings all the time.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you one more question. I don't know if you've been able to track this today, but this afternoon, information came out from the House Ways and Means Committee about IRS whistleblowers that the U.S. Attorney from Wilmington did recommend felony charges against Hunter Biden for other issues, that he was blocked. And then we have this sweetheart deal, as it's called, unless you work for CNN and MSNBC, involving Hunter Biden when it comes to tax evasion and lying on a form, an application for a gun. And this from an administration that says, pay your fair share and wants gun control. And Joe Biden says nothing. How is it that he says nothing? Because the media are corrupt, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is unbelievable. I did see that report. I haven't been able to look at it in depth. But, I mean, if they are blocking that, if that were a Republican, they would have gone ahead with it, and the person would have been in jail by now. And so you do have a two-tiered system of justice. Those who are connected to the D.C. ruling class, they just operate under different rules than the rest of the people. And obviously people who are in opposition political classes, they get the most scrutiny, and it's a corrupt system. And so, one of the things I've said is, when I get in January 20th, 2025, you have a new FBI director day one, and you have a huge house cleaning of both the FBI and the Department of Justice. And we're going to take a lot of really significant steps to break up all the power that's accumulated there, because I think what's happened is people have said these are independent agencies somehow, and that the president shouldn't be involved in actively policing them. But no, they're executive agencies. They answer to the elected president. You have a duty to make sure that they are using power responsibly. I think what's happened in the absence of any constitutional accountability, you have a lot of like-minded people that have conglomerated in Washington, D.C., and the founders would have predicted this. Human nature being what it is, they are going to abuse the power in the absence of constraint. And so we've got a major, major problem up there. I understand how severe it is, and I'll take really swift action in ways that no president ever has, because that's what liberty demands.
I lied. One more question. Iran is really right on the edge now. They've got intercontinental ballistic missiles. They are within an inch. They have nuclear materials now. They just need to marry them up. Biden looks like he wants to cut another deal. Obama took the position, well, we can't stop them really, so we'll have to accept the fact that they're going to have nuclear weapons, but we'll try and slow them down. They give the stiff arm to Netanyahu in Israel. You're one of the great supporters of the state of Israel. When you were in the House of Representatives, the first time I met you, you were chair of, I think, of a subcommittee, or on that subcommittee. You were pushing for moving the the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. What do you make of this?
Well, look, I think what Biden's doing, I mean, we should have a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. He is walking away from that. Obviously, they don't like Bibi, and there's a whole other issues there. But the idea that they're kowtowing to Iran, Obama's nuclear deal failed. They flushed Iran with huge amounts of money. Iran turned around and used that to fund terrorism and to fund their ambitions throughout the region. Why would you want to do that? So I think the U.S. and Israel need to be in lockstep on this. We need to turn the screws on Iran with everything we can, particularly in terms of the financial sanctions. And we need to support Israel's right to defend itself amongst those who not just threaten them, but seek to wipe them off the map entirely.
If people in this audience, Governor, want to learn more about your campaign, where do they go?
Go to rondesantis.com, rondesantis.com. We'd love to have your support. We're doing really well, Mark. We're raising really good money, getting great crowds, and it's a long haul, but we've got a message, and we're going to deliver it.
All right, my friend, best of the misses, and God bless you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Take care.
You too.